I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the box model used in CSS. I have a link here that I'll share with you at some point. W3 Schools tells you a lot about the CSS box model, which I've mentioned before in class. And the other thing that sort of ties into this is the semantic elements information. Semantic elements were new with HTML5, which has been out for a while. And basically, these are elements that are supported across all browsers, where you don't have to define a division with a name, because now there's a header, nav for navigation, a section, article, aside, and everything here in this list, as opposed to having to say div class equals header. You can just say header. Div ID is footer. No, you can just say footer. So that being said, I'm going to come over here, and this is going to be in relationship also to the exercises on week 6, where you're drawing these boxes. And specifically, because you're drawing boxes, the box model is going to come in real handy. Basically, everything in an HTML page is a box. All we have control over, you notice that the page is a big rectangle. If I slide all the way down, if I go all the way across, all of these are rectangles, which are basically boxes. We just have to tell it how tall, how wide, what color. So this is sort of like the easiest game of Tetris. In the end, you have the long pieces, you have this other one here, you have some shorter ones, but you'll see how they're all flat and they're all square. So we can tell it, hey, I want you to go from left to right, and then down, and left to right, sort of like you're doing that Tetris, trying to fill up the whole space, and then doing one flat one at the bottom from top to bottom. Now, there's lots of different coding that we need to do, but I'll do a minimal amount of coding just to give you an example on how to work the samples, and hopefully how to work an entire page, since it's all made out of boxes. And what is a box specifically? Well, in your HTML, whenever you say, hello world in a paragraph, you open up that paragraph, and I'll close it a couple of lines down. I'll /p, and then inside I'll just say red or something, just a word. So this right here, you'll notice when I highlight, it shows me everything in there. And the highlighted area itself is a box, because it's getting everything that's between these two tags, between the two paragraph tags, and that is the word red. So although you can put in as much space as you want, it will still stay the same, because the tag begins at the open bracket and it closes at the closed bracket after you put in all the tags. So I'll back up a little bit. Let me get rid of all this extra stuff that I put in. And so this is basically, like I said, what I mean when I say a box. The kinds of boxes that we're going to do, though, for the assignments, they're boxes themselves, but rather than being paragraphs or being H1s or banners or headers, which already are predefined, we're going to be using undefined boxes. And these are usually done with the word div for division. And so I have div starting and div closing. You'll notice that red occupies the same space, except that this would not necessarily be displayed as a paragraph. It doesn't have that kind of tags. I could add a paragraph tag next to the word red after, and maybe I will come back to that. What would differentiate this division, if I were to copy it, then to the next one, because I want to do a red box followed by a green box, and then I want to put in a blue box after it, and I'm just copying and pasting, Command C, Command V, and replacing the text as it goes down, red, green, blue, and then I'll use purple for the last one. So I've basically drawn 3 boxes, or at least 3 spaces for 3 boxes, 4 spaces. I'll put in a little bit more space in between so that I won't make the same mistake again of not being able to count them. Like I said, these are all stacked on top of each other. How then would we get these boxes to be red, and then right next to it get it to be green, and then on the next line to the left get it to be blue, and then next to it be purple, from left to right, all the way from top to bottom? We do that through CSS. div is our generic separator, our generic element that we're working with. And it stays generic until we say, well, this division is going to have a class that's going to be red. So class is equal to red, and I'll open and close a tag red. Red is still undefined, and that's why it doesn't show me anything. Rather than typing it all the time, I'm just going to type in copy rather class equals, and I'll move on to the next division. The next division I'll paste in class equals quote, close quote. I'm going to cut this, I should copy, and the next one will be green, and then the next one, if I paste it, the next one will be blue, the last one will be purple. Like I said, these classes still don't exist. But now I am saying this is what I want to use. In CSS, in the code, I will start to define then these classes. So I can say dot red, that's my first class, open up the bracket, and then say here that I want the background for this box to be red, close with a semicolon. And then the box that we had before suddenly goes not just on the word red, it goes all the way across, because that's all CSS knows right now, is that you want this element that is not really defined to just be red in the background. As far as we know, the default for the text is that it's going to show up cradle to the left, and that it's all the way to the top, and that it goes all the way across the visible space. And that's the same for green, and that's the same for blue. I will just, out of laziness, I will copy this code and paste it again, and paste it twice again, so that I can come back. This doesn't affect the color red, it just redefines it over and over again. It will always be red. But now I'll have a class that's green, and the background, rather of being red, would be green. And same thing for blue. Changing the name and then changing the actual color. And then the last one is purple. When a class like this one that I taught before was done in Dreamweaver, when we started with the graphic elements, the first thing that we would end up when building a website was what I call a stack of pancakes, and that's what we're looking at here. Although the stack of pancakes we can see because we have been defining the color inside, the truth is that if these were blank, that is that if that red box did not have the word red inside, it wouldn't have the text to hold it up. As it's blank now that I deleted it, you won't be able to see it. So it's a concept, it's something that's out there, but it not be maybe displaying until you have something to actually hold it. So then the box model becomes really important. How are we going to get empty boxes to be held up and float around in the right place if they don't have any text? Whenever you saw some of the examples on what we're doing, you're basically ending up with little blocks put next to each other. You might as well be working with Lego blocks. So these will actually have some content in them, but it really only gets in the way because all I want is the box. So to do that, I don't really, just so that we can follow along, I want to keep the words in there. But one thing that needs to happen, and I'm going to give myself a little bit more space in the HTML, and that is that all of this text, all of these classes, they need to be held within something else, another box. So I'll go to the very top of the page, I'll give myself a little space, and I'm going to open up and declare another box that's going to be called container. However, it'll be a div with a class of container. This container will then cradle all the other divisions inside of it. By that I mean at the very beginning it says this division starts, and then inside of this division there's going to be 4 other divisions that will eventually be part of the first division that I open. I will /div at the bottom so that it knows where the box is supposed to end. And I'm not sure if I can do this with CodePen, but I'll try it anyway. Yes, I can. I was able to select everything, and I'll click tab a couple of times just to give me a little bit of space. And I know then that I have this division that starts at the top, and it contains multiple divisions inside of it that will be affected by everything that controls the container. So what controls the container? Another CSS rule. I'll go to the top, and it could be at the bottom, but just keep in mind that it will read them in order at some point. I'm going to create a new class that's going to be called .container. I'll open up the bracket, and since I want to draw a box, I'll be simple-minded about this and just say that it's going to have a width of I'd say 500 pixels, close to semicolon, and then say that it'll have a height of 500 pixels. Remember that everything inside of the other boxes depends on how tall the text is. Although I have now defined the width for the container, which holds all the other divs inside of it, that's what I see. It's going to be 500 pixels from left all the way to the right, and only the height of every single letter inside of the words that are inside of the divisions. So although I could start to make these boxes taller, I won't do that just yet because I want to show you how to start to move the boxes around. Now that you have them all declared, this box is basically as well defined as the sample text that you get in the exercises. So hopefully you can follow along with what I'm doing and apply it to at least a couple of the assignments that you're working on. So my end goal here is to have the red box on the top left, and then have a green box right next to it, and then on the next level, the bottom level, have a blue box followed by a purple box next to it. So does that sound hard? It's not too hard. It's just we just gotta code it, and luckily we only have to code it once because these are going to be all boxes that look the same. So once the code is typed, we can pretty much copy and paste. I'm going to the first red declaration on the CSS. I've already told it that the background is red, and it knows only that it's inside a container that is 500 pixels wide, but I only want half of it. So I'll tell it that this box, the red box, will have a width of half of that. Width is going to be 250 pixels and semicolon, and that happens right away. The red box is now half of the width of the whole thing, and I can tell it to be half of the height of the whole thing, and I think I declared this as a full box. Right, 500 by 500. So red box, width is 250 pixels, the height will be 250 pixels as well. I'll close it with a semicolon. Here's my red box. Now if I want to do boxes like that for all the rest, all I gotta do is copy the width and height code. I'll copy that, come back to the next line in green, paste the code. Here's my green box. There's my blue box, and then finally the numbers are also applied to the purple box. But what's happening? What's happening is that we're creating boxes, but they're all stacked on top of each other because this is a vertical layout. The HTML code starts on top, the CSS code starts on top, and then then we have a tall building. We don't really have a window like we wanted. And the problem is that it's very literal. This is something that might happen in the 90s. But right now it doesn't need to happen because CSS has for a while had positioning tools. I'll show you the simple ones in this video, and that's just to make the first window. The class that's red right now, background red with a width of 250 and a height of 250. I can tell it then that it should have also a float attached to it. So I'll say that this should float to the left. Say float, quote, colon, left, semicolon. And you saw that something happened. And what happened was that the red floated all the way to the left, and it brought along with it some things, specifically the element that's right next to it. In the division, the class red is defined, and it says just display the class red. CSS applies to this class red. Float left, so it moves to the left, and because the next element, green, is right next to it, it doesn't know what to do, so it just kind of disappears because it's being displayed behind the red, because it doesn't really know where to go, because it was supposed to go left in the first place. But now red is going left definitely. So we have to give the green the same type of instructions. Now that red has floated to the left, let's have you, green, float to the left. So right after that, I'll copy that float left. Like I said, I'm a lazy typist. And I will put in float to the left. So now green is following the rule. In this container that's only 500 pixels wide, we're drawing from left to right. The red floats to the left right away. It appears to the left. And then the next element is also floating to the left, but to the left of what? Not necessarily to the origin, but to the next thing that was there. So then the green is now appearing next to the red. And if you're guessing that if we keep on adding that floating left to all the elements, that then they will behave like words in a word processor, then I'd say you're right. That's what we expected to happen. So I got floating elements on blue and purple, and here's my box. Can I make this a little smaller? Not right now. So now I have this box that's full of boxes. Things that will need to happen will happen within the stylings in the CSS. But another thing that I can tell you real quick is that left is not the only way to go. What if you wanted to go to the right? The green, we know we wanted to stay right. What if we told it, hey green, go to the right? Would we see any difference if we said then float right instead of left, green? And the answer is no, because this is the only place where it can go. Although it's going left, it cannot go left of the red unless we do something else to the red. So the green sticking to the right will then just stick to where it's supposed to be going. I'll change that right back to left. What then if the red, because it comes first and it's the first to float left, what if I said rather than floating left, why don't you float right? It's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to float right because it's first in line. There's nothing holding it back here. So red will then move instinctively to the right, while green, since it's still trying to get to the left, will actually get there in time. I will undo that, and hopefully that was not too confusing. But now I have red, green, blue, and purple, and I have all my boxes drawn out. What you need to do next is, at least for the easy parts, just get familiar with the box model. If we want to have the floating boxes like one of the exercises has, know then that the content, which doesn't really exist except for the word red, I could get rid of the word red, and then I just have a red box. Same thing with green, blue, and purple. I'll just keep them there just so that we don't lose track of them. But we can say, well, if I want the red box to sort of be floating inside the space of the container, I could add a margin. So that's the outermost area. It's going to be a blank space. I'm going to choose perhaps a margin in the red box of 10 pixels all around. 10px semicolon. So it applies that right away. So now there's 10 pixels to the left, 10 pixels to the top, right, and bottom. But there's only so many pixels inside of the container. So not everything will fit. So you have to do a little math when it comes to this. My width is 250 pixels because it's 250 plus 250 will get 500. If I have 500 total, I just added 10 pixels around the red. So that's 10 pixels to the left, 10 pixels to the right, 10 pixels to the top and bottom. So I can't just say 250 minus 10 is 240. I actually have to say 250 minus 10 on the left minus 10 on the right for width will be 230. And the height will be it's 250 minus 10 will be 230. So now I have a box that has equal space all the way around because the margin is 10 pixels all the way around. And it plays well with the other boxes. For the other boxes to play along, once again, because it's the same coding except for the red, I'm going to copy that code and replace the green code with that, except for the color. And now I have red, green, and now I'll have blue. Something that you see in the samples in the exercises that you're working is that, well, not everything is white in the back. How do you get that gray background that they like to use? Well, we have already declared the space in the back to be that box called container, which is 500 pixels by 500 pixels. We can also say that it's going to have a background color of, and we'll pick a gray. I'll put in CCC, which is hexadecimal for gray. And unless I misspelled it, which I probably did, I needed a pound sign because it's a hexadecimal number. CCC. CCC, by the way, is the same as CCC, as 6 C's. I lost count how many C's I said. You'll see that there is that background behind it. And now we have a red box, a green box, a blue box, and a purple box inside cradling everywhere. In the next video that I'll produce at some point in a little bit, I'm going to talk about how we can fix or rather position these boxes in a fixed space in the box, so that we can have a red box specifically in the top corner. We can have it a different size. We can have it floating in the middle. We can have it wherever it is that we want. Hopefully, as you're doing this and you're putting these pages together, you're thinking, well, what am I going to do with this information? Well, what if you were creating a mobile game that played like Simon, and you needed 4 buttons that you need to be pushing back and forth? This is one way to start to display those buttons with simple elements. So, see you in the next video.